All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, come on. Now, anybody who's been in a room with me knows I'm not going to let you get away with that. It's been 3 long years since we were able to gather to celebrate the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. The world changed 3 years ago after we had this breakfast. We have been through life together in these 3 years. So you need to make sure that you are appropriately responding to this incredibly joyous opportunity for us to come back together in fellowship. So let me hear one more time. One more time. Good morning. All right. That's what I like to hear. Now, you all know that Dr. King's life represented a steadfast commitment to ensuring and advancing equity for all people. Dr. King was the most American of patriots. He saw everyone, particularly those in our community, across our country and really across the world, who are the most vulnerable, who needed that opportunity and particularly needed the inspiration and the hope. That is what, to me, endures as the most important legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. As a man of vision, he challenged our nation to fully embrace the core values of our Constitution: freedom, liberty, and justice, as he worked tirelessly to wake the consciousness of our country. His words are no less important in this moment. This year's Champion of Freedom Award winner similarly awoke the conscience of our country in the fight for equality. We are happy and joyful as the City of Chicago Champion of Freedom Award recognizes and honors Chicagoans who have embraced Dr. King's vision and carry on his legacy to be a champion for their community. This year's Champion of Freedom Award is presented to Mamie Till Mobley posthumously. Mamie Till Mobley, as we know, was unwillingly thrust into a life of activism. But it was her activism as a mother, suffering through pain and turning that pain into purpose, that galvanized the civil rights movement, and particularly people here in this city. And while in her deepest sorrow, suffering the worst pain that any parent can possibly bear, she had the foresight to openly grieve, not turn away, not suffer her pain privately, but to show in the world and the atrocities of racism that are visited not just on her, but on countless numbers of families throughout the South and throughout the United States for decades. She commanded that we dare not look away from what was done not only to her child, but to lots of mothers' children across the decades through the heinous and violent system of the Jim Crow South. So may we never forget the courage it took to let the people see what they did to her boy. Her advocacy inspired the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. Thank you, Congressman Rush, for your diligence and making sure that that is now the law of the land. It's an honor, ladies and gentlemen, to pay tribute to Mamie Till Mobley, who was an iconic resident of our great city. I remember seeing those pictures. Jet Magazine, Ebony, across black media back in the day. They pierce our heart, but I'm hopeful that what they do is make sure that we never forget not only that awful atrocity, but understand the forces at work that could allow something like that to happen, and the injustice in our country that allowed the people who were responsible never to be held accountable. We can never, ever return to those dark chapters again. That is, in my view, the lasting legacy of our peace warrior, of our justice warrior, Mamie Till Mobley. And accepting the award on her behalf is Mamie Till Mobley's cousins, Ms. Ollie Gordon and Reverend Wheeler Parker Jr., who was in the room with Emmett Till when he was abducted on that fateful night. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage. Well, I'm going to say Reverend Thompson, I think, did our work for us. But I will add a few words. And let me reemphasize, Representative Thompson, not only thank you for being here, thank you for your work over a long period of time. He was a mayor back in the day as well, so he knows, and gave me a lot of tips and words of encouragement last night. But I also, as I said before, want to thank you for being a truth warrior. We need that in this country, in this world. Lots of winds of dissension that blow. And you heard the charlatans, I'll call them the false prophets. The people that want to tell you that the world doesn't spin around. The people that want to tell you that the sky isn't blue. And we have to be wary of those false prophets because they're amongst us too often, too many times, in our homes, in our jobs, in our schools, on our streets. And if we know nothing of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, we need to know that we need to hold firm to his unyielding hand. We need to know what our values are, and we need to have the courage of our convictions to keep moving forward. So thank you, Representative Thompson. So 3 years ago, before our world changed dramatically, we gathered here to honor the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And we did not know, of course, at that time, that it would be 3 years before we were back. But it's lovely to be back with all of you. And a few things have happened along the way. It's been an eventful 3 years, that much is certain. But thankfully, we've had the wise words and lessons from leaders like Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King to guide us through these difficult times. 60 years ago, Dr. King shared his vision of racial justice. He vividly depicted a world where resources, opportunities, and relationships are built off a shared set of values. Because if we didn't learn the lesson of COVID, we are all tied and united together. Dr. King knew that. Many others have said it. But he understood that most dramatically. And his life and legacy was a testament to making sure that we saw each other as the children of God and that we were united with a common sense of purpose. One of the previous speakers said we may hail from different backgrounds, we may look a little bit different, but the thread of humanity that runs through us must be something that we never, ever forget. All of God's children. There must be a place for all of us. That was certainly Dr. King's dream. And as mayor, and especially as the only the third black person to hold this office in the 185-year history of our city, only the second woman ever to hold this office in that long history, I feel a special sense of responsibility to not only carry on this dream, but to turn it into reality for our residents that call this home. Yes, of course, we must be guided by our moral compass and our vision for what the perfect, the beloved community should be. But we've got to turn purpose into action every single day because our people deserve no less. They deserve to see that our hard work is translated into acts. Because as a person of faith, I believe what the Bible tells us. Faith without works is dead. Faith without works is dead. So we have a certain responsibility, ladies and gentlemen, not just on this day and this weekend and on Monday, to make sure that we are uplifting the life and legacy of one of the greatest people that have walked amongst us. We have an obligation every single day in the ways that we can to make sure that we are living and fulfilling Dr. King's admonitions, his teachings. And if we do that, that is the way that his legacy will be real and manifest, not only in our lives, but in the lives of our children and in generations to come. We have that solemn responsibility to make sure that the dream isn't deferred, that the dream doesn't die, but that the dream lives on forever. To defend the dream, which is what the title of this breakfast is about, is to work hard every day to uplift the lives of the disinvested and the disadvantaged, to make sure that the full vestiges of citizenship to all of God's children who call our city home are real and palpable, so that our children can touch it and feel it and have a sense of ownership. Make no mistake, as I said before, Dr. King was a true patriot, a champion for our democracy, even in spite of himself, as Representative Thompson said, being in bondage. Even in spite of the fact that the instrumentalities of government at every level were turned against him, that were trying to thwart his path forward. He believed in the power of our democracy and brought that to us every single day. Because the true promise of America must mean that all who aspire to be free have room at every table of power. And of course, defending the dream means being unafraid to stare down injustice and tyranny and lies. And thank you again, Representative Thompson and every member of that committee for doing just that. Black man from a small town in Mississippi, cast upon one of the biggest stages ever, showed us what it means to have courage and conviction and leadership, to be a fearless fighter for the truth. To defend a dream is to face challenges head on and echo the rallying cry for change, just like our champion of freedom recipient, Mamie Till Mobley did. And after going through the deepest painful experience any parent could suffer, she courageously demanded that everyone look at what was done to her precious child. Many of us are old enough to remember seeing those photographs, Jet Magazine, Ebony, and elsewhere. We dared not look away. Horrifying to see. But she was trying to teach us. She was one of the original mothers of turning pain into purpose. Her grief urged us to rally together and fight for a better tomorrow. And we have to be heeding her call, because we are indebted to her and her legacy. That's why it's an honor for me to champion, as we did last year, the memorialization of the home of Emmett Till as a historical site. And I want to thank my colleagues in the City Council for voting to support that. To defend agreements to act in service of higher power, like Pastor Kevin Ford does every day, every day. Pastor Ford is a third-generation pastor who carries on the legacy of his grandfather, the late Bishop Ford, and who gave the eulogy at the funeral of Emmett Till. You see how we're stitching together the arc of our history here in our city. That legacy inspires Pastor Ford to infuse his faith into good work that is emphasized by his efforts at St. Paul Church of God in Christ to provide young black men and women with trade training, host food and clothing drives for those in need, provide resources to our elders, and this is how we fulfill our duty, to serve our neighbors. And we are grateful, Pastor Ford, for your shining example to all of us. Thank you, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, as I look out on this crowd, I see hundreds of examples of people of faith, pastors, reverends, priests, imams, rabbis, and of course, first ladies, who during the height of COVID-19 and the civil unrest raised their voices and gathered resources to protect our neighbors, our brothers and sisters in need. You open your doors to provide testing and vaccine clinics, food drives, vigils, and so much more. And prove that Chicago's neighborhoods flourish when our faith community is strong, active, and participatory. As Matthew chapter 25, verse 40 tells us. Now, if we were in church, I would say, turn with me in your Bibles. That verse reads, quote, "Whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." And this verse encapsulates and guides my life and my work. There are many others here today who have also answered to a call to serve and lead our major institutions and social services organizations. These leaders collaborate across neighborhoods and sectors to ensure that all of the support and resources and opportunities that our city has to offer is accessible to every resident. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to know that here and now in our city, we have more resources to do good, to turn around the fortunes of those who are in need, from our young people to our elders, to the homeless, to everyone who needs us to reach out and show friendship and partnership. And I commend all of you who understand that, who are on the front lines every single day, bringing that service delivery. Please know, if you didn't know before walking in this room, please know that you have a champion in me and my team and my administration, because this is what bending the arc towards the arc of moral justice, arc of the universe towards moral justice, this is what this must look like in this time, in this place. And I am proud and humbled to be the mayor of a city filled with leaders and doers and defenders of the dream. I'm especially proud that during my tenure, we have built things to make sure that it's just not saying, it's doing. I'm proud of Candace Moore, our first ever Chief Equity Officer for the city of Chicago. Who has made sure that we not only have a value statement, that we live that value statement, and that value statement is infused every single day in the work of every single city department. We understand that we must view our work through a lens of social justice. Equity and inclusion have to have meaning in the work that we are doing, or we might as well go home. So thank you, Candace, for all that you do to make sure that we are doing our part to keep the dream alive. And in case you haven't heard, I am an unapologetic, and in the words of Shirley Chisholm, unbought and unbroken in my dogged insistence that we build black and brown wealth in this city. That we open up the corridors of wealth and opportunity and economic development to all who are able, to all who are willing. And I will not turn back. I will not bend down. I will not stop as some have demanded, because this is what we must do in this time. This is the righteous work of our life, and we must continue onward to make sure that we never go back, that we never return to the status quo, that we do everything possible so that my child and your children have hope and opportunity. Because when they have open opportunity, they value themselves. They value the sanctity of life of others. They have hope and respect in their hearts. And it helps us on them unlock the power of innovation so they can fulfill their God-given talent. That is the mission that we are on, and we must never, ever retreat. I'm reminded of a quote from Dr. King, which says, quote, "Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase." And even though the staircase to a racially just future is a long and steep one, and we don't even see the top because we're not there yet, it's one that we must ascend, and ascend it courageously, and make sure that we are intentional, and importantly, not pulling up the staircase behind us, but bringing others along, building that bridge over which others can travel. So defending the dream isn't just about the here and now, and it's not just about a reckoning with the past. It's about setting our sights on where we want to go in the next steps, the next day, into the future, boldly, courageously, because that is what must be done. We must make sure that we leave no one behind. Our homeless brothers and sisters, the returning residents, our elders, the displaced and the disadvantaged. You know this. People in our city are hurting. And we must continue to create opportunity so that hope springs in the morning. This is the work that we must be about. So I know that I stand between you and further fellowship and communing. But I'm grateful every single day and humbled to be here as your mayor. It hasn't been easy. There are days, I won't lie, I go home and Amy has to pick me up, hold my hand, and tell me it's going to be all right. And you know what? It always is. Because I'm the mayor of the greatest city. The greatest time. Yeah, we got big challenges. But we also have tremendous opportunity and joy and love. And you people in this room are a big part of why we are special and different than any other place. So I want to say thank you. I want to say God bless you. And I want to say continue forward. The work must be done. Thank you all. God bless you.